Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, the network that's rated the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been rated the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course you good old boys from Africa, the Big C tribe, following Big C Sports from the Pyramids. They were doing the Big C show when the Pyramids were doing Big C. Also, you know there's no one we love more than the good old boys in Canada, outside of the good old boys in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's a wonderful, humid day down here in the south, so we're a little perplexed on the weather and everything, but after this great weekend of athletics, Charlton, on television, college football, pro football, we're on a little burnout stage, so right now we're trying to do a little detox, as they would say.
Did you say burnout from football? That's like being burned out from moonshine, burned out from barbecue, burned out from pretty women and working out. How does it make sense, Big C? Tell me it's not true. Tell me it's not so, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, that's the detox part, Charlton. You know, we got the hangover from the sports, but we got to detox our system from all that libation that we were able to take in. But, you know, sports has been such a beautiful thing this past week, Charlton. I mean, if you didn't get excited about the football games that were on this past weekend, Charlton, college and professional ball, then you have no pulse.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And speaking of having a pulse, today is a beautiful November the 7th, 2017, in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. And I want to thank everyone for following Big C Sports worldwide. You know, all over the world, I want to thank you very much. I even want to say that in China, they follow Big C Sports. I know POTUS went to China to kind of get away from being ridiculed, but I hope that we can keep détente. Depends on peace, depends on people having diplomacy, not calling people Rocket Man. But before we even get into that, I do want to take the time to say, you know, our condolences and our thoughts to the family of Roy Halladay, Big C. Not only was he a great baseball player, he was a two-time Cy Young Award winner. Just your thoughts on the passing of Roy Halladay and how did it happen?
Well, Charlton, the sports world lost a great icon in Doc Roy Halladay today. You know, he spent 13 years in the majors, you know, mainly with the Philadelphia Phillies and the Toronto Blue Jays. He was a two-time Cy Young Award winner, Charlton. And, you know, he lost his life today in a single-plane accident off the coast of Florida.
Wow.
He retired in 2013, Charlton, but he'd been very active in that community, helping law enforcement and everybody else with his charitable contributions, Charlton. You know, just an iconic figure when you think about how sports are supposed to be played and how people are supposed to represent themselves. Yeah. And Doc Halladay personified all of that, Charlton. He's going to be sorely missed, you know, in the baseball annals, as well as just in that community and with his family. And all our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those who were involved in his life, Charlton.
Yeah, and I know we talk about Canada, how we love Canada, our followers in Canada, and how, you know, a lot of people escaped slavery by going to Canada, by fleeing the United States and the land of the free and the home of the brave, going to Canada for their freedom. And here's a man who actually played across the border in Toronto for the Blue Jays, as well as in Philadelphia for the Philadelphia Phillies. So obviously the man had a great life, but too young. And I know, you know, life goes on for a lot of people, but I just want to give our thoughts and prayers out to his family and even to the fans who follow baseball. He played the game as a two-time Cy Young winner the way it's supposed to be played. So again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Halladay family. I do want to say that today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So Big C, I know a lot of things going on in the world of sports and even politics. You know, POTUS going around over to China for a couple of weeks trying to figure out what they're going to do about diplomacy and how they're going to keep North Korea at bay. I think a lot of people need to pay a little bit of attention and just turn away from sports for like 1 minute and read about what's going on in the world. Big C, just talk about how important this trip is, trying to have diplomacy as opposed to talking about having some type of mass destruction at the level that no one has ever seen before in the history of the world. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a trip to the entire Asian realm, you know, where he's going to South Korea, he's going to China, he's going to Japan, and he's going to go to the Philippines, Charlton.
Yeah.
which, the Philippines are basically run by a dictator.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at the corruption that has always occurred in that country, he toned down the rhetoric somewhat today in South Korea.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad as it has been. I think when you get in the proximity of somebody who can reach out and touch you, that you get a little calmer.
Yeah.
And so today he acted like an adult to a degree, saying that we needed to examine diplomacy.
Yeah.
I don't know who got in his ear, maybe Rex Tillerson, to say, hey, this is the wrong place to be shitting off your mouth.
Yeah.
They can find you here.
That's a very good point.
But, that was a good thing on his behalf to do.
Yeah.
But, Charlton, when we talk about diplomacy in the world, it's like having diplomacy in the United States.
Yeah.
Where you have to have people on the same page. When you look at this tragic shooting that took place in Texas over the weekend, Charlton, in a house of worship, and how so many people lost their innocent lives, Charlton, by the senselessness of these semi-automatic weapons that, the NRA and Congress refused to put a ban on.
Yeah.
No one goes out and hunts squirrels, Charlton, with a semi-automatic weapon, okay?
No.
They don't do that. Even in Texas, they don't hunt armadillos with a semi-automatic weapon.
Nope.
So when you put these things into the public, and as they said, this man today was not sane. He was not in his right mind. He had escaped a mental institution. He had been court-martialed from the Army.
Yeah.
And various other actions that he had taken. But, the problem that we have is the evaluation of people. When we look at the president who wants to put these bans on these Muslim countries because these are people of brown complexion.
Yep.
It's not about religion. It's that they don't look like him.
Yep.
And that's what he has a problem with.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have a problem with people who look like him now in America that is going around committing mass murder.
I know.
That they all have some type of problem. They are domestic terrorists. You don't go out and create that type of carnage and saying that a guy is just sick. No, that's a terrorist act.
Yeah.
Because it was plotted, it was planned, it was calculated, and it was executed, Charlton.
Well,
that's a terrorist act.
And people can always go back to, again, POTUS going around the globe trying to create diplomacy and trying to get people to cut back on the nuclear arms race with North Korea. But just keep in mind, this is the same person that said that Mexicans are rapists and murderers, that Muslims can be terrorists. And the Black Lives Matter thing, we know with the NFL, he said fire all the SOBs. So I hope that more people who have calmer heads are talking to him. Big C, I do want to bring up another serious issue. We're talking about China in the world of sports. We know that China has sent a lot of its great athletes into the United States to try to play basketball and even baseball. Yao Ming is one of them for basketball. And I look at what happened. It's a sad story, and I didn't know if it was true at first, but I guess I hear more about UCLA had about 3 basketball players that were in China, and they were actually detained. They were detained for, I guess, shoplifting. Now, here are kids that are given a scholarship, and anyone can be accused of a crime. Just because you're accused doesn't mean it's true, okay? But you're UCLA, they're over there with the coach Steve Alford. I think they're playing Georgia Tech in a basketball game. Now you have 3 players accused of shoplifting. Those guys are detained. It's a serious issue, Big C. How do we keep diplomacy in that matter and getting the players back to the United States?
Well, Charlton, this is one that's really perplexed. And one of the kids was one of the Ball kids.
Yeah.
LeVar Ball's son.
Yeah.
And so, I don't hear him shooting off his mouth about this situation.
No, it's too serious for that.
This may quiet him and kill that big ball of brand that he was talking about.
Yeah.
But to have these players, and this kid's on a reality show.
Yeah.
To go into a foreign country. Now, we saw this back in the Olympics, if you remember, when you had the swimmers down alleging shoplifting in a store.
Yeah, in Brazil.
And down in Brazil during the last Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
And they were detained by police and had to pay a fine.
Yeah.
This is a situation that if UCLA handles this right, then these kids lose their scholarship, Charlton. The thing about, you have to look at the Asian countries, Charlton. Yeah. You're talking about some of the most visualized and recorded countries there are in the world.
Yep.
This is the world of electronics when you look at China and Japan.
Yep.
This is all they believe in. So they are on surveillance. That you can't explain your way out of the surveillance camera. And if you got these players that are
hold on,
Donald
Trump did. Donald Trump did. Maybe they
Well,
can use.
yeah.
They can use.
Donald Trump was white. Okay.
Okay, that's true.
All right.
Well, do you
He
think
was
he's
white.
gonna? You think he's gonna stand for? I know LeVar. You know the ball kid's African American. You think Trump will make an effort to get African American basketball players free since he has such enmity for Black Americans? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he'll say probably give him the death penalty.
Yeah, he had
knowing
Central
Donald
Park
Trump,
5.
because they're African American. They need to be hung. Put in prison. That will be the saying of a Donald Trump.
Like the Central Park 5. Yeah.
He won't call a white American who kills dozens of Americans a terrorist.
No, that's a
and
shame.
he'll always say you can't politicize this situation. How much more political can that situation be, Jonathan? He was court-martialed from the Army.
Yeah.
Isn't Army politics?
Yep.
Okay, that's run by political leaders, okay?
Yeah.
And so you can't politicize this, but you walk away from it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that bothers me most about the president.
Yeah.
Is that he almost advocates these things that occur.
Well, he turns his
And he
back a
said
lot.
his thoughts and prayers are going out to the families. He has no consideration for those families, Charlton.
No.
He is going from a written template that someone gave him.
Yeah.
When you speak from your heart, every American knows when you speak from your heart.
Yeah.
Whether it's with venom or whether it's with empathy.
Yeah.
He has neither one of those empathies in his speech, Charlton, because he's sitting there and he's trying to follow the words because he don't have them in his heart.
Not in his heart. Yep.
That's what bothers me the most, is that these families go through such a tragedy. We go back to the military family,
Yeah.
the Johnsons, and the lack of empathy he had towards that young man's wife.
Yeah.
And the same thing he had in Charlottesville when those Americans were run down by a neo-Nazi, Charlton.
Yep.
He had no empathy for these people. So, well, those were good people on the other side. The
Yeah.
Nazis were good people.
Right.
Okay? We go to Vegas. 800 Americans get shot. He said, well, we have to look into it. I don't want to rush to judgment.
Yeah.
You got people that were killed and shot, and you don't want to rush to judgment?
Yeah.
That's not rushing to judgment. That's just stating what happened.
Yeah.
And now we had this same thing again this weekend, Charlton, in the house of worship. And he is, taking this action that, well, this was a sick individual.
Yeah.
Okay, the government had control of him. Your government, for the past 8, 9 months, however long you've been in office, 10 months, have had control of this guy.
Yep. Obviously,
Okay.
when you look at POTUS and his stance on a lot of things, people still can't figure him out, but I think he's being figured out more and more as more investigations happen. But I do want to turn your thoughts real quick on something with UCLA, because we saw, I'm not trying to equate the things, but they're both considered crimes. Rick Pitino just got, in a lot of trouble, got fired basically, because of some conduct of his players that were detrimental to the team, or even detrimental to the university, as if they've never done what they accused the players of doing. But he lost his job. I'm not saying that offer did anything, but if you're responsible for the athletes that you take across the seas, right, to a foreign country, and he stayed there with them because they were detained. I don't know if he was detained too, but he stayed there. How culpable is he for the behavior of these athletes who went into a foreign country, and even though they were accused, and accusal doesn't mean anything, but what's the culpability of Coach Alford, just like Rick Pitino was held accountable for what some of his players were doing, and this, I guess, these points shaving schemes going on, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the main thing with Alfred Charlton, as you mentioned, he stayed behind.
Yeah.
Because he's responsible for these young men that he's told their parents that he would look out for.
Yep.
The unfortunate part is you can get hit with shoplifting here in America. You don't have to be in China.
That's true.
And so how is the coach, as we keep saying, going to be responsible for all the action of the 15 athletes you have under scholarship?
They make Rick
on the basketball team.
Pitino. They did
You
it to
can't watch them
Pitino.
all.
They did it to Pitino.
Well, Charlton, they were running in a group of 3.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so these 3, did this together. They colluded on this incident that occurred.
Yeah.
Whether the coach is with them or not, they weren't standing up saying, hey, coach, we're stealing. Okay?
Yep.
So you can't hold the coach accountable when he's not seeing what's going on. This is different than what occurred in Louisville. What occurred in Louisville was a money incident, okay?
Yeah.
This was money exchanging hands. Rick Pitino knows the money. He knew the money flow at Louisville.
Yeah.
Just like any other coach knew the money flow at their university.
Yeah.
They may not touch it with their hands, but they know the hands that it went through. At least they're only one removed from the initial moving of the money.
Yep.
They're only one person removed. Now, when a player goes out, and we've seen this through the history of college sports, that they go out and commit an impropriety. And when they're not in the sight of the coach, how do you hold the coach accountable when someone's walking the street doing an action that's illegal?
Yeah.
You can't go say, okay, because this young man who has a scholarship at your university, we're going to hold you responsible because you didn't babysit him 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this is not the Art Briles situation at Baylor, where that massive rape scenario occurred over a long length of time.
Or the Penn State situation.
Or the Penn State with Jerry Sandusky.
Yeah.
This is an isolated incident that we know of thus far.
Yeah.
That these players were caught. But just like at the Olympics, you have to be dismissed. You cannot be held within this university's program because these are supposed to be institutions of higher learning.
Yep.
Not just about athletics.
Well, let me ask you.
So,
I want to ask you, Big C, and I'm not being cynical. The timing of Donald Trump playing tough guy, cowboy president to the world, going to China, in about the same period of time, you have American college basketball players that are detained. And now Donald Trump happened to be in that same country. And again, you could be accused of anything. Anyone who says that's not true, you can be accused of a lot of things. Just study the Kerner Commission. You could be accused of crimes you did not do. But I think it's auspicious that Trump's there at the same time that this happens. And one of the athletes happens to be, the son of a very famous, even irritating father. Now, that's some talk I'm hearing also. Does that make any sense, or is that a big stretch, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, also, LeVar Ball brings his attention to his kids that is unwarranted.
Yeah.
And for people who think that LeVar Ball is a great coach, Charlton, he's not.
No.
You know, have you ever looked at the rhetoric that he uses when he's coaching these AAU coaching, Charlton?
Mm-hmm.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is street mentality.
Yeah.
If you can't educate, I mean, when you look at college coaches like Jim Boeheim, Mike Krzyzewski, these coaches are tutors and mentors.
Yeah.
Then you look at LeVar Ball on the other end, and he feels that the show is about him.
About him, yeah.
It's not about the young men. These young men play based on talent, not based on what he teaches them.
Yeah.
Because he's all about himself. And so you think about it, as they say, that the apple don't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's true.
So when you look at the actions of his son, the arrogance that he used being in a foreign country, allegedly committing this act, okay, that comes from his father's mentality.
Yeah, and that's something I want people to just keep in mind. Even Lonzo Ball being sat on the bench with the LA Lakers, I don't know if that's just a pushback on his father saying, look, you don't run the show, we run the show, and we can sit him down. I think Ball's going to be a great player, but it may take him a year to figure out the physicality of the NBA. I want to bring up another thing, because it's a bit of controversy too. We'll come back to the United States. In the world of the NFL, we know Jim Irsay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, had his own issues with OxyContin. I think $27,000 worth of OxyContin, which everybody cares around that much. He and Rush Limbaugh, guys like that. They say
that's what they have on date night, Charles. That's a normal date night.
$27,000 OxyContin. It's not like it was $30,000 of OxyContin. Only $27,000, Big C.
Only $27,000.
But here's a guy that says that, and I guess he had a conversation with Tony Dungy, which everybody respects, former coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and an analyst for NBC Sports, that they thought Andrew Luck, who had a lacerated tissue on his body, some body part, I don't know if it was his stomach or
lacerated kidney. He had a lacerated kidney.
Okay, a kidney
2 years ago,
and that had to be treated with medication. Now here's an owner who had his own issues with the law, saying that maybe that Andrew Luck, who's respected by all of his teammates, needs to toughen up, or maybe is not really being serious about how much pain he's in. Big C, does that make any sense for a guy you give $140 million to? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I have an issue with Irsay anyway. This is a kid who inherited, okay?
Yeah.
Not like he earned it or built it. He inherited his daddy's franchise, which allowed him to facilitate his drug habit.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
$27,000 of OxyContin, illegal OxyContin, in the passenger seat of your car and you're driving inebriated, and you get a 6-month suspended sentence.
And people can Google that. They can Google that.
And that's a fact.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're a black man, you get 27 years in prison.
27? How about 30?
Okay, probably 30. But here's a guy who's a drug addict who feels no pain, telling the player that goes out there and gets beat up because he won't hire an offensive line to protect him, that it's all in your head.
Yeah.
That you should be out there playing.
Now, I'm with Andrew Luck on this time.
Hey, I got a pocket full of Oxycontin. Take some, Andrew. That's what Ursay is saying.
Yeah, he could have. He could have at least offered that. I stand with Andrew Luck on this. You've been an athlete. You know what it's like when you get injured. And we always have, in the archaic days, they told a guy to toughen up. But as we have science behind intelligent people, they say no. Medical science says it takes the body time to heal. And so I'm with the athlete on this because we talk about the CTE issue, and a lot of guys are being damaged for it. And at the time, they were just told to toughen up by some of their coaches, some of their trainers. We know smarter people come ahead. You know, there's a thing called science. And I know a lot of people don't believe in science, but most of the advanced world does. So if he has an issue with pain, or his body parts are being severed, his kidney being sliced, or injured or severed, I think Andrew Luck deserves at least the respect of the guy that he's playing for and putting his body on the line. What kind of message does that send to all the other players for the Indianapolis Colts? We're behind closed doors, not in public. Like a lot of the racism is done behind closed doors. They don't say it in public. What do they think about the owner now when he throws his best player and his most highly paid player under the bus? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Johnson, I know what Andrew's going through. I wasn't a quarterback, but I had a dislocated right shoulder and torn rotator cuff in that same shoulder.
You didn't toughen up?
My shoulder, no, I went on injury reserve that night. Before the game was on, they had me on injury reserve.
Yeah.
But even after surgery, Charlton, my shoulder never came back to what it was.
Yeah.
I could never lift at the angle that I would normally lift at bench pressing.
Yeah.
Everything else, I had to re-educate my shoulder to be able to lift.
Yeah.
And so this is what Andrew is going through.
Yeah.
He's having to re-educate his arm and his shoulder to throw.
Yeah.
Because he's making adjustments. People think, they look at baseball players, they say, well, a baseball player blows out his arm, he gets Tommy John surgery, and he's back even stronger. Well, we're talking about taking a tendon from a leg and putting it in the elbow. We know that the legs are stronger than the elbow.
Yeah.
So when you take that tendon, all of a sudden, yes, that joint is automatically stronger. But we're not talking about shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
You don't hear baseball players coming back from shoulder surgery. You hear them coming back from elbow surgery.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a transplant of a tendon that's stronger than the tendon that was there.
Yeah.
The shoulder, you're talking about that entire joint. And so anybody who's ever had a knee or an ankle problem, go out and run the next day after you sprain your ankle or sprain your knee. Okay?
Yeah.
Since you're a tough guy and you hang out with Robert Ursay, you Oxycontin.
And he and Rush Limbaugh.
Go out and run the next day. Actually get him and Rush Limbaugh to come along with you.
You know Rush Limbaugh sweats in front of a fan in the wintertime. What is making him sweat so much? Has anyone ever looked into him? A man who sweats when it's 40 degrees outside and he has a fan on him at work. How does he sweat, Big C? Do you have any thoughts on that, Big C?
Maybe eating too many chicken wings, Charlton, like they're choking on them or whatever.
That is
But Rush has been convicted of the little Oxycontin thing himself.
Not Rush Limbaugh, the same guy, the ditto head guy, that guy?
Well, Charlton, it's nice to have a seven-figure income.
Yeah.
Because when you can get caught with illegal narcotics, you have a problem. You don't have an addiction. You have a medical problem.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's how the laws are in this state. Is that you think about Josh Gordon, who was just reinstated by the NFL, okay?
Yeah.
Josh Gordon has admitted alcoholism and marijuana usage in excess.
Yeah.
Doing them before the game.
Yep.
I knew many players who did it before the game.
It's healthier than
as well as other substances.
Yeah.
But, here's a guy who's lost 2 years of his NFL career.
Yep.
Okay? Ask Roger Goodell about this.
Yeah.
This player's lost 2 years of his NFL career for using marijuana and alcohol.
Yep.
Okay? 2 years. Robert Ursay got a 6-month suspension from being around the team for having $27,000 in Oxycontin in his car and driving inebriated. But I want to see how much $27,000 by you in marijuana and alcohol.
Wow.
Each one of, show me that.
Yeah.
And show me which, and I know none of them are supposed to be good for you, okay? As they say, but marijuana is a natural herb.
They do give the marijuana to cancer patients to help ease the pain. So if it's good enough for someone dealing with a cancer, wouldn't it be good enough for someone dealing with a torn knee who's going out to compete against 300-pound men? I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, or a high school team, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. When you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. They're in all 50 states. Big C, I want to bring something up, too, because we're still dealing with the issue of athletes, and sometimes people say they're not hurt, just toughen up. Now, this is a little bit more of a flippant conversation, but I look at the Green Bay Packers, and you look at their coach, Mike McCarthy. Now, Green Bay is one of the best franchises in the history of sports. In the history of the sports universe, they are synonymous with football. Green Bay Packers, everybody knows who they are, even around the world. But I have Mike McCarthy, who has a hurt quarterback, and we know that Rodgers is injured and out for the season. Some knuckleheads are saying come back in December. No, Aaron, come back next year. Your health is more important. They have Hundley in there, who's out of UCLA. He did okay last night in the spread, and McCarthy has belief in that, but he's not willing to change the offense while Rodgers is out to help suit a guy who runs a spread offense. Big C, does that make any sense that you won't change and adapt to a system that will help your guy be more competitive in your league? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I almost hasn't realized that Aaron Rodgers is not in the lineup, Charlton.
Yeah.
And he's got this offensive scheme that was set up for Aaron Rodgers trying to make Hundley run. It's like with any other system anywhere, Charlton. When you have your starting quarterback go down, you make adjustments for the backup. Our Cowboys who dumbed down their system.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
When Tony Romo went down.
Yeah.
But this is a situation where the system that they're running for Hundley, he doesn't throw a ball over 10 yards down the field, Charlton. And Green Bay has a vertical offense.
Yep.
And so the players are trying to make adjustments to what they're not being able to allow to do. Now, they lost Rodgers, but they also lost Clifton, an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
So the team is hurting in many ways. Is that you have a quarterback that hasn't taken any regular season reps to speak of.
Yep.
And now you're throwing him under the fire. And so everybody knows that is playing from a defensive perspective that he's going to be limited in his option that he has.
Yeah.
And so everybody has scouted that he's not throwing the ball over the top. His offensive line is broke down and he doesn't have a running game.
Yep.
So I do blame the coach for this.
Yeah.
I blame the GM for this.
Yeah.
Hundley is only operating with what they give him. The calls come in from the sideline. And you're saying that this is all that we can give this young man to do?
Yeah.
We can't let him throw the ball down the field when we have some of the best downfield receivers in Adams and Nelson in the NFL?
Yep. I think that's a good point, Big C. They got to find a way to be consistent with that. One thing I want to touch on that's a little bit flippant in the world of the NFL, I know Tony Romo has been elevated to the number one position with the great Jim Nantz calling CBS, for CBS Sports NFL football, and never really been in a broadcast booth, and they replaced an NFL quarterback who actually made it to the Super Bowl and put them there, and Phil Simms. Now, just a little flippant conversation that was made about Tony Romo saying that someone tackled like Deion Sanders, and Deion never wanted to hit anybody. And then Deion Sanders took a little umbrage at that and came back at him and said, wait a minute, I didn't buy my yellow jacket. I earned it. The Hall of Fame jacket for a lot of you good boys. They give you Hall of Fame jackets when you're elected into the Hall of Fame or inducted into it. And also the Super Bowl championships that Deion Sanders has as well. He came back on Tony Romo saying, look, Dak Prescott is the one that's won games. You really didn't win anything. Some people are mad at Deion for responding to being criticized on national TV by Tony Romo, and they both played for the Cowboys. One won Super Bowls, the other didn't. Did Deion Sanders come under too much flack, Big C, for just throwing back at what was given to him? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is the state of America now that you're allowed to take pot shots at minorities, okay? Mm-hmm. And they should be accepted of it. Donald Trump, what did he say? Let's go back to the way things were.
Oh, yeah.
Before they could do anything about it.
Yeah.
Okay? That was Tony Romo taking that shot. Tony Romo that was a classless shot at Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders is a retired football player.
And played all positions.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Won a couple Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Multiple All-Pro
Yep.
seasons. More than Tony Romo could have ever accomplished in his career. That was lackluster, to say the best.
Played kick return, defensive back, played wide receiver on multiple teams, won championships with both teams that he played on. Come on.
But, here it is, Tony Romo taking a shot at a guy who's sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
But Deion's crazy. He wasn't known as a great tackler, so he didn't go out there and say he was a Jack Tatum.
Right.
Or Ronnie Lott.
Yep.
But mainly guys didn't throw at Deion, so he didn't have to make any tackles.
To. He was smart.
Deion could make a hit when he needed to.
Yeah.
But he wasn't going to go out there and knock somebody out. We all knew that.
Yeah.
But he was a good enough player to be in the Hall of Fame, as you say, earn that yellow jacket.
Yeah,
Tony Romo won't get one unless he's putting somebody else's on.
Right.
He didn't have a Hall of Fame career.
No.
But that's something that you don't see in the press box. I spent years in, and many other guys that have been my peers have done the same thing. We didn't take pot shot as retired players. There's enough players on the field that you don't have to talk about the guys who are no longer in the game.
Yeah.
That'd be like saying, well, Jim Brown was soft when he was a running back. He couldn't have made that run that Ezekiel Elliott made.
Right.
That's the same type of thing that you're saying.
Yeah.
So why do you take the shots at the retired guys? I mean, if you want to take a shot at somebody, go to the 49ers defensive back, okay? They don't tackle anybody.
Well,
They're right there in the game.
And Deion doesn't need anyone to defend him. Here's a guy who became an entertainer as a rapper. He's rapped, okay? Tony Romo hasn't done that. Here's a guy who played Major League Baseball. Tony Romo hasn't done that. Here's a guy who played in the NFL at the highest level possible as a defensive back and covered some of the best receivers in the history of the game, from Michael Irvin when he was with the 49ers. He played against Michael with the Cowboys. And he covered Jerry Rice when Jerry Rice was playing for the 49ers and Deion with the Cowboys. So name a player who's had a kickoff returns, punt returns, played defensive back against guys who are Hall of Fame receivers. Okay? Not only that, he has championships to show for what he's done. But I thought it was rough on some of our media brethren for saying that Deion didn't have to say anything. He could have taken the high road. Well, shouldn't the guy also take the high road who was criticizing him on national TV? And some people think, oh, he was just making fun of him. You make fun on your text messages. You make fun when you pick up a phone and call. It's called the Dirty Dozens. You don't blast a guy who's a Hall of Famer on national TV as if it's going to make you look good, Big C. That's why I stood up for Deion Sanders for that.
Well, Tony Romo could have used the line, Charlton. That looked like me trying to make a tackle after I threw an interception.
Exactly. That would have been more appropriate because it would
have been more appropriate. That looked like me trying to make a tackle after I threw an interception.
Yeah. No,
don't bring somebody else into the fray.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And speaking of another issue, we stay with the pro football. I look at Colin Kaepernick and what he's done over the last year and a half. He did it for people all over the world, men and women, black and white, but especially people who have been racially profiled by law enforcement. And I know a lot of people are too dumb to Google the Kerner Commission, so they think it's about the flag because they don't read. But the ones who can read, they can read the Kerner Commission that was issued by late President Lyndon Baines Johnson. There's a movie coming out about LBJ that will also talk about that. Well, here's Kaepernick. There's bills in the front of the Senate right now because Roger Goodell, along with a gentleman from the Seattle Seahawks, they crafted a bill to go to Congress to pass it for criminal justice reform, which is what the Taking the Knee was all about. You have kids in the Bay Area at Bellarmine High School in San Jose, which is right near the area where the 49ers play now. And some of them are taking the knee because they're well educated. It's a private school, a private high school, guys that read, where their parents teach them to read more than just play sports. They also understand the constitutional reason that he took a knee, to bring on social reform in the justice system. It was never about the flag. So now, Big C, I want your thoughts. Roger Goodell, after a year of not really doing much for Kaepernick, and these owners, they invite him to a meeting to kind of ambush the guy to say, look, we tried to give the guy a chance to meet with us. They never wanted to hire him, but you know how they turned their opinion toward him when he sued them, like Judge Wapner said? When you sue people, you tend to get their attention. I just want to get your thoughts, pro and con, on that meeting that may or may not happen. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, I do believe that Colin Kaepernick will attend this meeting because when you spoke about taking the high road, he's taking the high road. He doesn't have to drop his suit. He just goes to the meeting.
Yeah.
He listens to the dialogue. because he created this, Charlton.
Yep.
And so he should continue. This should be a continuum of what he created. Society really needs to know and understand. That's like saying, when Colin Kaepernick says we need social justice because there is an injustice. That's like saying that the NRA saying that the guns don't kill people. Okay.
Right.
That's look at the parallel of those.
Yeah.
You got the NRA saying guns don't kill people, and Colin Kaepernick saying we have social injustice. And who is getting the bigger hit? Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick is saying, well, he's against the flag in the military because he's saying there's social injustice. Now, black Americans have fought in every war, Charlton, starting with the Civil War.
Yep.
Slaves fought in the Civil War, Charlton, when the Emancipation Proclamation came along.
Yep.
They fought in the World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam.
Yeah.
In all the not the Asian, but the Middle Eastern wars.
Persian Gulf, yeah.
African Americans have been a part of all of those. So when you talk about against the flag, those people who say that are against all the African Americans who have fought in every American war to defend the freedom of this country.
Tuskegee
But
Airmen.
also, Charlton, even when those Americans have fought in those wars, they dealt with social and racial injustice when they came back to America. Tell me when did white America stop hanging black Americans, okay? They hung them after World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, the Civil War. Black Americans have still been atrocity, even serving in the military.
Yeah.
So if there's anybody who's opposing the flag in the military, it's been white Americans for the atrocities that they have done to black military personnel in American history.
And when you bring that up, I think the military was integrated between 47 and 49, fully integrated. And it wasn't black Americans saying we don't want black Americans to serve. That was our mainstream white society. And a lot of them had the Bible in their hand as they were saying, we don't want equality in this country. Let's all praise God. And even Donald Trump said people should bring more guns to church because he said, well, if the guy didn't have a gun in his car, he went up and stopped the guy who assassinated the people at the church in Texas. Donald Trump was saying it's a good thing that he had a gun. So he's encouraging people to bring guns to church and the clergy and pray to God and bring your gun. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, Big C. I do want to just say, with this thing with Kaepernick meeting with Goodell, I'm kind of torn with Goodell. I'm proud of him for taking a stand. Even though it's late in the game, and ironically, he wants to take a stand with the African-American athletes because Jerry Jones is trying to lead this posse of trying to displace him because he thinks he lost $75 million on bad pizza. And people aren't bad enough bad pizza, so he wants to blame Goodell and the ratings and all that other garbage. The fact of the matter is, go back to Lyndon Baines Johnson, who happened to be a Caucasian man, even though JFK was more favored by the mainstream society as a prodigal president for all the people, we the people, for the people, all the people. No, he was the Anti-Voting Rights Act. Lyndon Baines Johnson passed it, and even to this day, what Lyndon Baines Johnson did was right, and that's why all of us have the right to vote now, not just white people. So with Goodell facing some heat from the owners, that also they conspired against not hiring this guy. We all know that we're not dumb people. I mean, some of us are dumb, but most of us that read, we're not dumb. Now that he's under heat from the owners, he's trying to stand up even more for the African-American athletes. Do you see that as a double stand-up, Big C? Does that make any sense at all?
Well, Charlton, Goodell now is standing up for what he said he would do, protect the shield. We've heard that in every case where he suspended players in all his court battles, that he is there to protect the shield. Colin Kaepernick was part of the shield. And so he is doing what he's sworn to do. As he stepped back and read some of his own rhetoric, then he said, I can't walk away from this situation. So when they talk about the ratings are down in the NFL, Charlton, that comes from NFL greed, okay? The reason why the ratings are down in the NFL greed, what is the biggest thing about pro football now?
There's too much.
Not the games on Sunday, the damn fantasy leagues, okay? The fantasy leagues have more fans than the teams do because everybody's out there, they're a coach, they're a general manager, they're every owner, all these things. And so how do you keep up with your fantasy points? Do you watch one game to see if you got one player playing or two players talking? No. You watch ESPN Sports Center and you watch NFL Network because you get all the games up to the minute, scores and highlights. Okay? So why do I want to sit there and watch the one game that Fox gives me or the one game that CBS gives me when I can go to the NFL Network and I have all the games on playing in those hours?
Yeah.
I have all the morning games and I have all the late afternoon games.
That's a
So
very
I'm
good
not
point.
going to sit there and watch one channel or try to flick back between two games because that's all you're going to get is two games if you're looking at the network, Fox and CBS. And then, you're only going to have one game late afternoon.
Yeah.
So you get a total of 3 games you can view versus going to the NFL Network and you get all 13, 14 games that are on that day.
That
So
reminds.
the NFL has killed itself by overextending itself, Chalker.
That's a good point. It reminds me of the restaurant that opens up. Remember back in the day we could go to the place where they give the Happy Meal and they have the double M. I think they call it in one of the movies.
McDowell's.
McDowell's. Eddie Murphy's Coming to America. McDowell's was it John Stamos or Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy, a lot of good old boys. They went to McDowell's. They didn't go to McDonald's. But McDonald's now, they started losing some share and some people coming to just buying a Happy Meal and a milkshakes and some fries because other restaurants started offering salads. They started offering other healthy choices. And then they came back and started doing the same thing. The NFL Network has taken what CBS and Fox and NBC Sports cannot do. They show you something from every game that's played. About every 3 or 4 minutes, you get to see what's happening with other teams. That's what's hurting some of the major networks that have these Nielsen ratings. And all the people with the Nielsen ratings, they haven't come to my home to ask me if I'm watching a game or not. So I'm very suspect about that. Also, a lot of people, they watch games on the apps. Okay, they have these apps on their cell phones. They don't have Nielsen ratings on the apps on your phone. I think NFL football has taken off, but more people have more choices because of what you said earlier in the program with electronics coming out of Japan and China. And that's why a lot of the ratings may be down with the Nielsen ratings, but not people who watch the game. Big C, I want to get your thoughts on one more thing before we close out today's show. And again, the thing with Kaepernick, whether he meets with the NFL or not, you would have to be an ignorant person to think that he was not ostracized from this league with all the owners. I mean, for people that read, we know discrimination when we see it. And if you don't know it when you see it, that's why we still have it going on. Jerry Jones has spent more money defending somebody who was accused of sexual abuse or domestic violence or whatever you want to call it. More money defending a guy, whether he's innocent or not. You can always be accused. He spent more money on defending a guy that's brought up on domestic assault charges than he is standing up for players who say we don't want to have our kids being racially profiled when they don't have a uniform on and a Dallas Cowboys hat on their head because he's walking around the street. Does that make any sense? More money to defend a guy accused of domestic abuse than people who don't want to be shot or murdered by law enforcement. And we know the current commission is true. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Jerry Jones has a history as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys to employing players with criminal records, Charlton.
Yeah.
This goes back to their Super Bowl years when you look at the plethora of trouble that his players were in all the time.
Yep.
They were accused of sexual assault. They were accused of drug use.
Yeah.
They were accused of hit-and-run accidents.
Yep.
Okay? Jerry Jones defended these players. He kept them employed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that any employer should fire somebody for something that they did not do at work. Okay?
Exactly.
But Jerry Jones has a history of defending people with a criminal record.
Yep.
And he's not defending these guys because he likes them. He'll tell you that he likes them because they're Cowboys.
They got a star on their
Yes,
helmet.
they're Cowboys, but they help you win.
Yeah.
And he's proven that. The guys that are starters, he will go to all ends defending these guys and investing in their defense.
Yeah.
But he proved last year that he had a player that was falsely accused, a backup player kick returner,
Yep.
of shoplifting. He could not wait to release the young man, okay?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't a starter and he wasn't critical in the Cowboys winning, he had to go.
But
So
the guy was
Jerry
innocent.
Jones is as hypocritical as they come, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because if you're a starter and you're a criminal, he will defend you to all ends.
Who is it? Hardy,
But if
Greg
you're
Hardy you talked
falsely-
about? Was it
If
Greg?
you're falsely accused and you're not a starter,
Yeah.
he's going to get rid of you.
Yeah, and so we know that goes on. So again, what Colin Kaepernick is doing, even for the black men who are afraid, and they want the benefit of whatever good can come out of these laws in front of the Senate for criminal justice reform, it has nothing to do with disrespecting the military. It's about protecting people of color, whether you're black men, white men, doesn't matter, but white people don't get racially profiled. I guarantee you, I ask any one of them, How many have had law enforcement pull you over, ask you, are you out on parole or probation, when they pull you over as opposed to driver's license registration? How many have been followed in their neighborhoods to see, let me see who owns this car, what car you're driving, why are you in this neighborhood? That doesn't happen to white Americans. And if it does, please let the whole world know, because I think a lot of people, it just doesn't happen to them, so they may think that something is about the flight.
Let me simplify that for you, okay?
Yeah.
If there was a black man taking an arsenal into a hotel room in Vegas,
yep,
he would have been arrested, okay, for gun trafficking, gun running.
Yeah.
If that had been an African-American man in that hotel in Las Vegas 6 weeks ago, okay, that would have been the scenario. He would have been arrested, but he would have never been able to pull a trigger, all right?
Yeah.
But because he was white, they can say, well, he was part of the gun show.
Yeah.
That's the scenario that was being used. Well, there's a gun show, so he's a buyer or a seller.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was going up there with criminal intent. But if he had been a dark-complected American, he would not have survived to that day. He would have been in jail.
Yeah.
So that's the racial profiling we look at. It's not as subtle as people want to think it is. It all depends on who's carrying the weapon around. Here's a white guy that escapes from a mental institution in Texas. Okay?
Yeah.
He's buying these guns after having felony convictions. Blacks don't get that opportunity, Charlton.
No.
Hispanics don't get that opportunity.
No.
Middle Easterners don't get that opportunity. But when you're a white American, regardless of your criminal background, you still get the opportunity. People say that was a loophole he got. No, that was a fact that he walked in the store and bought these things.
Yeah.
The government knew who he was when he was convicted.
Yep.
But they chose not to put him out there in the FBI database.
That's a very good point, Big C. So for all of our brethren, the media brethren, the ones who are supposed to be like Walter Cronkite, just the facts, I hope that you can Google the Kerner Commission and what did Lyndon Baines Johnson, late President Lyndon Baines Johnson, what did he know over half a century ago that the American media does not know today about the same issues that Colin Kaepernick is being ostracized for bringing up? That's a point I want people to just do that. Big C, I want to bring up one more point before we close. In the NBA, Kyrie Irving had 35 points last night. I know all this talk about he and LeBron James, whether they like each other or don't like each other. You don't have to like who you play for. You don't have to like who you play with. There's a lot of employees that don't like their employer. They don't like their boss, but they keep giving them a paycheck, so they keep showing up to work. There's a lot of people who don't like someone even that they work with on the same football or basketball or baseball team. And that is okay. That's why people get hired and fired. Kyrie Irving, does it make sense now that people can see why he left the situation where he was tired of being, Robin and LeBron being Batman? He wanted to be Batman instead of being Robin in that scenario. And now that he's out of LeBron James' shadow, he's actually starting to shine and show people that he really is an all-star player. I just want to get your thoughts on that before we close.
Charlton, in my career, I never had more than three teammates at one time that I liked on a team, okay?
Yeah.
Throughout the week, I hated them.
Yeah.
But on game day, I loved them. We were family because we had a common goal, okay?
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving had that same goal with LeBron James while he was playing, but he also knew he had star appeal. He's won a title.
Yeah.
But look how many players in the NBA have not won a title. So him winning another title would be anticlimactic because he's already been there.
Yep.
He's reached the mountaintop of athletics. He has that championship.
Yeah.
Now he needs to go out and prove to people that he can carry the load.
Yeah.
That he can be the guy that people look at when the game is on the line. And he's proven that in Boston. They've won 9 consecutive games, Charlton.
Yeah.
And Cleveland's won 4 this season.
Yeah.
So when you look at who has benefited from this move, Kyrie. But I keep thinking about people are not looking at how LeBron left Cleveland.
Yeah.
Several years ago. He's like, I'm out of here.
He said, I'm leaving.
And made it dramatic and all that. Had the whole press conference and all of that.
Yeah.
And everybody said, well, Kyrie waited till the season was about ready to start to demand the trade.
Yeah.
Tell me the last time that a player got traded during the season and somebody cried about it.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Suns just made a trade today.
Yeah.
The season's 9 games into the season. They make a trade.
Yep.
No one's blasting the Cleveland Suns for, the Phoenix Suns for making a trade.
No.
But everybody's getting on Kyrie because Kyrie wants to go out and stand as Kyrie. So when people look at the team, they can say led by Kyrie Irving.
Yeah. And so
anybody LeBron ever plays with is going to be in LeBron's shadow. He
Yeah.
is just that much of a superstar.
Yeah.
And some players just want to be recognized for who they are.
Yeah. It's like being on the third person on a date when you're with LeBron. It's the owner who writes the checks, LeBron, and whoever's going to be that third person. But Big C, I want to bring this thought up. I want to say that back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bondini Brown. He was Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we had the first shakeup this week in the college football playoff scenario. Georgia and Alabama remain at 1 and 2. But now we have Notre Dame at number 3, Clemson at number 4. Ohio State fell out of the chase, Charlton.
Yes.
We're going to have 2 more teams this year, Charlton, looking at an opportunity. We got Miami playing Notre Dame.
Yeah.
One of those teams will fall from the bowl picture, Charlton.
Yeah.
Miami is undefeated. Wisconsin is still undefeated. They're sitting at 7 and 8 in the bowl picture. The thing that I look forward to the most, Charlton, is that when will those zeros in the loss column start to matter to all the posters?
Yep, that's a very good point. And you can find out when it matters every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys from down south. We want to say that there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no woman should have to deal with that garbage all on her own. And as we tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.